Kia ora tātou. Hello everyone. Have you ever been in a conversation where you've had to do all the talking and the other person is pretty unresponsive? They don't kind of make any effort to respond and they're just happy to let you do all the work in the conversation. It's pretty hard going. Conversation is a two-way street after all, and I know I've said this before, but so is our relationship with God and our prayer life. It's a conversation with God. It's a two-way street. Last week we talked about listening to God, but there is a second half to that. So today we're going to look at the prayer practice of response. How do we respond to God when He speaks to us? Listening to God is very important, but so is our response. In John chapter 21, when Jesus reinstates Peter, who had earlier denied him, He asks Peter if he loves him. And Peter's reply is, "Yes, Lord, you know that I love you." Then Jesus replies by way of a commission, "Then feed my lambs, take care of my sheep, feed my sheep." Peter goes on to do exactly that for the rest of his life. He showed his love for Jesus by responding not only with words of love, but with obedient action. He demonstrated his love for Jesus by his response. Earlier, when Jesus was with his disciples, all of them, in John chapter 14 and verse 15, he says to them, "If you love me, keep my commands." Jesus is looking for their response. Our response to God is kind of like the second half of prayer, if you like. It's like prayer is incomplete unless we respond to what God is saying to us, to what we've heard as we've been listening. And our response to God can be all kinds of things, from just believing His words of love and affirmation instead of disbelieving or doubting. And I say just believing, that's actually quite a big deal, to actually perhaps even break a pattern of doubting or thinking that what God says about us is true for everyone else but not for me. It takes something to actually choose to believe God and what He says when He says that He loves us, that He's chosen us, that He will provide for us. It takes something to believe what He says, and that's a great response. Maybe it's choosing to let go of fear and to receive God's love. That's a great response. Or it could be choosing to forgive someone. If we've been holding a grudge or we've actually come into offence because of something someone else has said or done, and we've been holding that and harbouring that, and God may be speaking to us to say, you need to actually forgive that person and let that go. And so our response is then to choose to do that. Another response is to perhaps an action of kindness or generosity towards someone that God is speaking to us about. We know we have the sense of Him prompting us and speaking to us to do that. In those times it can be easy to just forget about it or reason it away because of our busyness, and but we need to actually follow that through. And when God is saying, go and do that for that person, pray for them or bake them that cake or call them up and say how you're going, whatever it is, to actually follow through and do that is our response. It could look like God speaking to us to do something new, to trust Him and follow His leading in a specific direction, which will require us to let go of control and to have faith and to trust Him, knowing that we won't be able to work everything out, but God will come through for us. He will provide what we need and open the doors that need to be opened for us to do what He's asking us to do. If He's asking us to do it, He is going to open the doors, but it will require our response of trust and obedience, putting our faith in Him. Sometimes God may be asking us a question, and our response is to answer honestly so that we can move forward. It reminds me of Elijah in the cave at Mount Horeb, where God asked him, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" And Elijah poured out his heart to God. He had a bit of a grumble actually, and he said, "Oh, this is what's happened. I'm the only one," he's a bit feeling sorry for himself. But he poured out his heart to God in response to that question. And that's okay, because God's the best person that we can pour our hearts out to. But then God spoke to him again with words of encouragement and hope that propelled Elijah forward into the next, as he responded with obedience to what God asked him to do. Have you ever watched the movie My Big Fat Greek Wedding? It's actually one of my favourites. There are so many quotable quotes that can be used in everyday life from that movie. Like one that springs to mind is, "Tell me what to say, but don't tell me what to say." In other words, I want your help to a point, but I'll still do what I want in the end. It's funny in its context in that movie, but when I think about our relationship with God, it's so not meant to be like that. But sometimes we are like that. We want God's help, but we don't always want him to tell us what we need to do. And yet, that's actually what we really do need. We need him to tell us. We need him to show us. We need him to speak to us. We need him to guide us. Whatever our response to God needs to be, it's going to require our obedience and trust. And that's how we grow. That's how we become more like him. So I want to encourage you to be a responder to God. The prayer practice of response is what will bring transformation in our own lives, and it will enrich the lives of others around us as we do that. So that's it from me for this week. Thanks again for listening today, and please feel free to respond with a comment about today's video or any of my others in this series. I'd love to hear from you. So have a great week and see you next time. Bye.